Hello everybody, Mel here and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about some of the deeper reasons why you might be tolerating toxic and dysfunctional people much longer than you should be. For reasons where you might find it hard to identify what is abusive behavior, to be able to put a stop to it, to be able to move on from it, to want to go back to your toxic partner. There is always underlying reasons for why this is happening. And I just want to address one of these reasons right here. What I'd like to talk about today are the consequences of not being allowed to express your feelings when you as a child were not allowed to fully express the full vocabulary of your emotions and what it means and how they can serve you. When instead you are shamed, you're ridiculed, you're punished, you're told off, you're given the silent treatment, you're rejected. All of these can have a massive impact on us when we get older, and it can result in the aforementioned things I was talking about at the start of this video. Allowing abusive behaviors to go on for too long, to not even know what it is. It's all linked, and I'd like to explain, from my point of view anyway, why this is happening. Now, as children, we are dependent on our caregivers to teach us, to show us the way, to show us how to live in this world. It's all quite overwhelming for us. We're new at this. And part of this development that needs to happen is our parents to allow our behaviors, for them to make space for us to be angry, to be sad, to be happy, to show affection. For healthy development, we need a parent to show to the child that it's okay to feel these feelings, to hold the space for their child, to help them make sense of their feelings, and how to best manage and emotionally regulate. This really helps when we have a parent teaching us how to manage our emotions, and even better when we have a parent modeling this for us, when a parent can actually regulate their emotions and give us permission to do the same, when a parent doesn't shame us when we get angry and teaches us how to best manage this. When a parent sees that we're sad and doesn't want to reject us or try and make us feel guilty for being sad, and gives comfort and love to the child, because it's scary as a kid. Everything's quite overwhelming. Sometimes we lose touch of how scary it is for kids, and we need that soothing from our caregivers, from my mum and dad, to show that it's okay, things will get better. So healthy development ideally occurs when, as a child, we have the environment in which we're allowed to express our feelings, and we are able to fully explore our full vocabulary of feelings, to best know how to deal with certain emotions, and to how to best manage it when we're in a place where it's not appropriate to get angry or to cry, and to not go to a place of shaming ourselves, but perhaps to think of other ways to manage it. All of these come ideally from our parents showing us. But for many of us, this just didn't happen. We were shamed. We were bullied, ridiculed, mocked, humiliated, made to feel guilty because the parent couldn't handle you and your light, couldn't handle your energy. Perhaps you had a highly narcissistic parent who didn't like you being how they didn't want you to be. When you were expressing negative emotions and it's too much for the anxious mother who finds everything too much. And as a child, we learn to hold it in, repress it, bite our lip because it's too upsetting for mummy. If I'm angry or if I'm upset and then mummy goes quiet and ignores me and rejects me, then as a kid you're going to learn that that's not good. That if I'm angry now, if I get sad, then mummy just abandons me, rejects me. Then as a kid you're going to learn that this is behavior that makes me unlovable. This is behavior that makes me a bad boy. This feeling makes me bad. That's why mum doesn't want to be with me. Therefore, I'm not going to feel this. Remember that as kids, we see our parents as gods. We don't know any different as a young kid. So when the parent is rejecting us because of how we're feeling or our behavior or what we're saying, then as a kid, we're going to blame ourselves. We're going to think, Mummy or Daddy is treating me this way because I've done something wrong, or I'm a bad boy, bad girl. There are many consequences for not hitting these developmental markers by the time you get into adulthood. Some of these consequences are, quite simply, not being able to distinguish between your feelings, not knowing really when you're feeling angry, because you weren't allowed to feel it. You weren't allowed to know the boundaries of this whole dynamic, the emotion of anger and the behaviors that it produces, and why we get angry and how to manage it. We need a parent to be able to give us advice on how to manage anger. But instead, if we get a parent who couldn't handle our anger, then we aren't allowed to fully express it, so we don't know the whole parameters of this emotion and how to best manage it. So what happens is, as a kid, we repress it. We don't know what it is. We don't know how to discern it amongst the whole sea of emotions. So for some people, they may not be able to fully identify when they're feeling angry. And for others, they know anger. They know anger all too well. The problem is that it just comes out in outbursts. And often this follows or precedes an emotional flashback. But then feelings of guilt and feelings of shame kick in that stop the anger, because this is a replay of what happened in the past. You got angry and then mum or dad made you feel ashamed for getting angry. Perhaps they acted in a certain way to elicit a guilt trip so that you would stop and feel sorry for them. And so you're doing it to yourself now. So maybe as a kid, you had to learn to repress your anger. But what happens to the energy of anger? It doesn't just magically disappear. It needs a release. Anger as an energy is very energizing emotion, and it needs to be released. If you look at ducks in the wild, when ducks get in fights with each other, when they move away, they shake it off and then go about their day. See it with dogs as well. Pretty sure most animals have their own way of doing it. It's a way to discharge the pent-up energy so that we can release it and achieve homeostasis, can become back in balance with ourselves. When we're getting in a fight, we become adrenalized. And especially if you were a child who was punished or shamed for being angry, then when you do have feelings of anger, they will soon be replaced with feelings of guilt for being angry, for getting angry so randomly, feelings of shame for being this way. But you see, if the anger, the source of anger hasn't been addressed, if the reason why you keep getting angry hasn't been addressed, then you will keep having these outbursts of anger. It's a sign that something's not right. Your feelings are telling you something. Something needs to be resolved. Something needs to come to terms with. Or maybe you need to change your lifestyle. Maybe cut people out of your life. It's a very territorial response. It's there to tell us something. Something's not right. And instead of properly listening to this, what I call healthy anger, because we've become traumatized about being angry in the first place, then we don't actually fully realize why we're being angry. And instead, we just go to a place of guilt and shame and aim to soothe our anxiety and discomfort from all this springs up. And it never really gets addressed, the whole source of it, because we end up beating ourselves up about it too much. So another consequence is falling into depression. When anger gets turned inwards, when we lose track of why we were angry, when we feel helpless and hopeless, when the trauma's just gotten too much, when we're just depleted, when our willpower has gone to zero, we feel stuck in inertia. And that is depression. It is ice. It is the frozen state. This is the lowest level of hell in Dante's Divine Comedy. Inferno, the lowest state of hell is frozen. And this is what depression can be like, just paralysis. And if it hasn't developed into depression yet, then you can betcha that consequence of being told that your feelings are wrong, that you're not allowed to feel this, you're not allowed to feel that, it's going to leave you with general anxiety. It's going to leave you with low self-esteem and confidence. And any time you go out into the world and you get trampled on by people and get used and exploited, and that just further wears down your feelings of self-worth and confidence and self-esteem. And this leads me on to talk about the final consequence when your feelings haven't been allowed as a kid, is that you end up allowing dysfunctional and abusive people into your life. Perhaps you just don't even see it. And when it's happening, the sad truth is that if you've had a dysfunctional, domineering mother or father and you were used to it, it's familiar to you. This is what you grew up with. This is normal to you, at least on an unconscious level. And so it will seem normal to you and not it won't seem weird when someone is being dysfunctional in the relationship. Red flags to you would perhaps just be written off as normal. It's all right, I've handled this before. The feelings of anxiety I'm feeling, I felt this all my life. Maybe it's not this person. It's understandable why people can get caught up in codependent relationships with dysfunctional people if they don't know how to discern their feelings, if they don't know what's wrong behaviors, what's abusive behaviors, because they've been used to it all their life. When they don't know how to say no to their partner, to put healthy boundaries in place because they've lost their voice. Now, can you relate to this? Do you feel like you've lost your voice because you weren't allowed to fully express yourself? Did you lose your voice as a kid because of repressing genuine, authentic expression? Were you allowed to shine as a kid? And the problem with losing your voice as a kid is that we try to find our voice again. We try to find the mirror that we didn't get, the positive mirror. We try to find it in the face of the beloved, in our future partners. However, if you're familiar with people who are dysfunctional, then if you don't know what's happening, you can find yourself in relationships with people who remind you of your mum or dad, the dysfunctional parent. And it may be hard to really discern what is acceptable behavior and what is not, what is downright disrespectful to what is even abusive. It's hard to know what is appropriate, what is respectful, when we weren't ever showed this to us as a kid. To us as a kid, if you've come from an abusive background, then being disrespected, maybe you're used to it because this was how you were shown love. If arguments, shouting, unpredictability, putting you down, mixed with random affection, if this was what love was to you as a kid, then it makes sense that you will be attracted to dysfunctional people. You'll find yourself in a relationship with someone with BPD, and it will be harder to move on, even though you may be suffering, even though you may be so depleted from giving it your all and it's still not good enough, even though you may be so heartbroken and lost your trust because the person that you love just keeps changing their mind about whether they want to be with you, and yet you still want to be with them. You still want to go back. It is possible to break this spell, but it all has to come back to you, okay? As within, so without. What we don't know within ourselves, what we struggle within ourselves, we're going to struggle with other people. So the best relationships to have with another is based on the best relationship you can have with yourself. Focus on yourself first. Take the time now to give yourself permission, to give yourself the space to feel everything. Think of all the emotions that perhaps you were shamed about. You feel uncomfortable, you feel self-conscious about expressing in front of others. Perhaps you find it hard to express these feelings even on your own. If you find it hard to say no because you fear the repercussions, you fear the anger, you don't want the drama, you fear the loss of relationship, what this does is over time it quietens our voice. We lose our voice, our ability to express what we need. Maybe over time you even forget what you need. You don't know what you need in the moment. You're so used to living for the other, pleasing the other. Now is the time to get your voice back. And this is so important if you want to build self-esteem, confidence, and self-worth. Find your voice again. What does that look like for you? Perhaps it's quite literally singing. I like to sing to myself. It really lifts my mood up. It helps. I don't know how, but it does. Dancing, writing, What works for you? Being out in nature, practicing with my friends, saying no, practicing with my family, saying no. But my most favorite thing to help me really get into my feelings is building a safe environment for myself. And that includes having people that I trust in my inner circle, being with my animals. Animals are a fantastic way to help us with expressing our feelings. Their unconditional love from an animal is so healing in itself and gives us the corrective emotional experience when we never got that as a kid. Animals don't judge like a dysfunctional parent would. Challenge yourself. If you find it hard to say no, to speak up, think, what is the worst that can happen? If the worst that can happen is your personal safety is threatened, you don't feel safe, then do what it takes to get yourself into a safe environment. When you're in a safe environment, to gently push yourself to practice saying no, to being more assertive, testing the waters. If you were taught in the past that it was dangerous to say no, then test it with people that you feel safe with. In situations where with your friends you thought, actually, maybe we can do this. Little steps. If you found it hard to speak your voice, don't wait until you have to scream. These are just my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. What helps you? If you've had difficulty in the past of expressing your feelings and this is something that you're doing now, like, what's really helping you? I'm a big believer that if you want to progress in your personal development, you need to get into the realm of feelings. It's not just your mind. You need to get into your body and look after yourself and be active and be healthy and all that. But people struggle the most with the feelings. And this is probably why if you've had a childhood of not knowing how to express your feelings, then it's going to be very difficult doing this work. A lot of anxiety is evoked when we start doing shadow work, when we are working on ourselves. It's a really painful process. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Jung said that. It's very true. But treasures await for those who are courageous to tread the path. So I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts. If you want to get in contact, drop me an email. My email is in the description below. And it's melanieprsvp@gmail.com. Have a great day. Bye for now.